Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll meet some religious who are reaching out to separated and divorced Catholics.
And we'll visit some lay people who are reaching out to homeless children around the world.
We'll meet a priest who has a unique way of spreading the good news.
And see another priest's touching memories of his mother.
Hello, I'm Monsignor Charles Minor.
And I'm Sean Hughes Camp. Welcome to this edition of Reel to Reel. We live in a country of such abundance that each of us knows that our own children can grow up without, in effect, wanting anything.
Not at all to minimize the serious problems we do have here at home, yet we still have to look around the rest of the world to see how our Christian need is to reach out to the maximum problems that exist elsewhere. A few weeks ago, we broadcast a story about how some people are opening their churches to the refugees of war. Tonight we have a story about some Americans who are opening their hearts, their minds, and their wallets to the innocent victims of a more pervasive enemy, poverty.
Maria Filomena Reyes is 8 years old. She has seen her 2 sisters and a brother die of starvation. Until this year, she had never attended school. Her mother spends each day in the small town of Las Golondrinas in Honduras, searching for food. 7 months ago, Alexander, a 5-year-old child from San Rafael, Colombia, was near death. His frail body was asthmatic and full of worms. He suffered from serious skin disease and was in great pain. It looked as though the boy would not have much longer to live.
I'd rather be a sparrow than a snail. Yes, I would. If I could, I surely would.
The situation of children in developing countries, described in a recent United Nations report, is that 17 million children under the age of 5 die each year from poverty, sickness, and malnutrition. In the light of these staggering and depressing statistics, it is very easy to feel helpless and powerless. But there are some who look into the face of starvation and decide that perhaps they can make a difference. One such person is Bob Henson.
In 1982, 17 million kids under the age of 5 starved to death in the world. And according to the UNESCO report, if the world had been willing to spend $100 per child on that child and mother, that child could have been saved. When you know the kids and you've held them and they've died in your arms and you've dug a hole and put them in it, they really mean a lot.
Bob Henson spent 10 years as a rural teacher in South and Central America.
The children there, many of them, their occupation is a garbage collector. Not with a truck, but with a gunny sack. They pull this gunny sack through the rutted streets and they pick up garbage and drag it. And I saw a little 9-year-old girl pulling hers. I asked what she had and it was a dead dog.
When Bob returned after one extended trip to Latin America, he had an idea. He called his family together to share it with them.
As corny as it may sound, it's one of these ideas whose time had come. When I came back, my brothers and sisters, we are 14, we basically just got together and sat down, and we had to decide where we were in our religious and social lives.
In November 1981, in the basement of the Henson home, the Christian Foundation for Children was born. The foundation is a group of concerned Christians who are trying to do their part to make this a better world, especially for the children. It is a grassroots organization made up of volunteers and sponsors. One of the brothers, James Henson, purchased and donated a home and some land. Today, the foundation has over 250 sponsors who give $15 a month to help support an impoverished child.
We were interested in the one-to-one aspect, the fact that you know exactly where your aid, your help is going.
This is the Hawthorne family. 2 weeks ago, they became sponsors of the little girl, Maria, whose 2 sisters and brother starved to death.
Well, basically, we're helping provide better nutrition for her. She's getting adequate schooling now, which she did not receive before. And while she is at school, she receives her noonday meal there, which she probably wouldn't receive otherwise, because the family is very poor. Her mother has to spend most of the day looking for food to feed all of the children, and the diet is woefully inadequate.
I know one little child that is sponsored by my niece here in Kansas City, Alexander. He's in San Rafael near Cartagena, Colombia. When we were there a year ago, he was very sick, very bad skin disease. Now when we're there this time, as a result of some of the help we could get him through the coordinator with some medical attention, he looked very healthy, and his skin was cleared up to where he just looked like a normal little boy now. So,
Bob's brother, Bud Henson, is one of the co-founders of the foundation.
things that really impressed me is the abject poverty of so many of God's children. People struggling to live, not enough to eat, not enough medicine. They cannot read nor write many times, and they're very poor. No matter where you go, you just run into hundreds of thousands of these people who have nothing.
The Christian Foundation for Children not only fights starvation, but also gives these poor children a sense that others do care about them and their lives, that they are loved, that they are thought about, that they are wanted.
As strife continues to grow in some of those countries we have just seen, I think it's commendable the way the Henson family have been able to overcome political ideologies and conventions to give aid to the innocent victims.
There's more coming up on Reel to Reel. In People and Places, we'll meet a priest with a unique way of spreading the good news, and in Expressions, we'll see another priest's touching memories of his mother. Stay with us.
When we will learn to love as a flower loves, by giving freely of its fragrant self, there will be peace on earth at last. These words were written by Father Emery Tang, a Franciscan priest whose name means peace in Chinese. Father Tang has devoted his entire life to conveying messages of God's love and peace.
I really believe that today, as 2,000 years ago and 2,000 years from now, the message is universal. That is, Jesus is the good news. God is love.
For over 30 years, Father Tang's career has been divided between secondary school administration, working with Franciscan communications, and more recently, traveling a circuit of lectures, retreats, and workshops. He currently serves as director for Sarah Retreat in Malibu, California. But one of his most interesting endeavors that has endured throughout the years is his Care and Share cards collection.
I am a priest, and my whole mission is to proclaim the good news. When I first began, that's how I labeled everything. Have you heard the good news? And then it was up to me to convey the good news of the gospel in image. So, you know, Chinese, one picture worth 1,000 words.
Father Tang began using his photography skills along with his way with words to create Share and Care cards. These greeting cards are perhaps the only ones designed specifically to build bridges of understanding, heal injuries, and restore peace in fractured lives.
It's just another way of me preaching. The picture speaks for me. It speaks for the gospel. I'm simply a vehicle to try to get people to tie in their deepest beliefs with something that is interesting, something that's beautiful.
Many of his cards' simple sayings like, "I'm behind you no matter what," and "Thorns have roses," convey to readers thoughts that are oftentimes difficult for them to put into words. Share and Care cards also serve as a sort of ointment to soothe and soften someone's deepest pain.
I've long thought that a series of cards on forgiveness is what's needed. To say I'm sorry or to say it's all right, forget it, is a basic necessity. So these cards under that logo of the heart with the Band-Aid on it, broken hearts healed, that's what the gospel really is. We love one another back to health. We heal the sick. We cure the crippled. That's what Jesus came to do. That's what these cards would like to do.
You cannot help but photograph from who you are and what you believe in, and it just permeates how you see. So I think a priesthood fits extremely well in with photography, in the sense that my own faith life deeply and profoundly affects the way I see others. When I went home at Christmas time, we thought it was her last Christmas with us, and it was. I just was going to make some simple snapshots of her and our family and the grandchildren, just to remember her by. But I began making some portraits that seemed to hint at something more going on. Her pain was quite intense. She spent the last 2 or 3 months sitting in that chair. She had a brain tumor, and it was affecting her speech and eventually affected her vision. This photograph, I think, is profound. It really expresses their whole relationship together. He's checking in with her as he had checked in with her for 42, 43 years. Yet she's looking at him with that knowledge, or with that eye that is looking on the whole relationship from a different perspective, with that knowledge that she's not going to be there that much longer. I think if everyone could die this way, and understand death is, can be, not in itself a beautiful thing, but what happens to the family and what happens to the person. I think God works very profoundly in the lives of people, and the Holy Spirit is very much present in people's lives at this time. And it can be a very wonderful experience of growth. She reminded me, she was so innocent and so much at peace with herself sitting on the edge of the bed. She reminded me of herself as a little girl. It was kind of almost like that return from little girl through life and ending with that kind of innocence and simplicity before God and just being at peace with herself. My little sister at the end of the whole thing said, you know, after this, I'm no longer afraid to die. And I thought, isn't that beautiful? What more could a mother do for her children than give them that example of faith and courage? I mean, she really kind of completed her own motherhood by her dying, by giving us that example of courage and faith.
People that are hurting and who are coming to terms with the broken edges of their own lives that really need us to be there.
In our next story, we're going to visit the Franciscan Renewal Center in Phoenix, Arizona, where religious are helping separated and divorced Catholics to deal with the changes in their lives. By the way, you might recognize a regular on Reel to Reel in this piece, Father Jim Young, who sometimes does our DABAR segment.
At first, I didn't want to believe it. I pretended nothing was happening. When my husband and I were first separated, I refused to even phase into the reality of the fact that my marriage was breaking up. I had two young children. I've been married for almost 9 years. And I just said, this isn't happening to me.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number since the number one.
These people are part of a growing number of American Catholics who are participating in church-sponsored separated and divorced groups. Sister Paula Ripple has worked extensively with such extraordinary people.
The God of Christianity is a nevertheless God, a God that says, yes, you made a choice that didn't work out for you. Yes, you made this decision. Yes, you made some mistakes. Yes, all of those things. Nevertheless, I will always love you. And nevertheless, I will always offer you more life. I mean, Jesus said often in the pages of the gospel, it's not people that are well and healthy and happy that need a physician. It's people that are hurting and who are coming to terms with the broken edges of their own lives that really need us to be there. We came here last night offering you the armful that is the life of each of us. We came here together, a reminder that you call us to walk together and to offer friendship and love to one another. And so we ask your love for us, and we offer to you our prayers and petitions. Divorce is not an event that happens in a courtroom. And I think society and relatives and family and churches think divorce is an event, and it's not. I think one of the key insights that's been gained by not only the church but by secular counselors is the realization that divorce is a process.
To learn more about that process, many divorcing people in the Phoenix area come to the Franciscan Renewal Center for weekend retreats, where they pray, listen, and share their own stories.
I've learned there are a couple of things I can do to set myself up not to feel really okay. I can get everything else in my life to where I feel pretty good, but I hang on to a couple old favorites that allow me to stay stuck. And that's my close door, I think.
You first need the stories. They are to find out that somebody else is worse off than you. You need to hear that. And you get together and the person says, "You think your husband was bad? Wait till you hear what mine did." And that's what you need to hear. And you hear that and you say, "Oh, they made it. Look at them. They're doing fine. Maybe I can be better."
I work with people all day long. And doing that, I find it real difficult to be around them at other times, even though I find myself being lonely.
The pain of loneliness and loss is worsened for divorcing people because they also see the divorce as proof that they are failures.
That's the problem with human failure. It is not that God will not forgive me, and it is not that another person will not forgive me. It is that I cannot forgive myself, my own humanness of having failed at something.
And you make mistakes.
Helping people experience the forgiveness of God is one of the chief goals of divorce ministry. The sacrament of reconciliation can be a powerful moment for many. Services expressing God's healing touch can also bring some peace.
If you dwelt, O Lord, upon our sinfulness, then who could stand? But with you there is mercy and forgiveness, and a guiding hand. Remember your love and your faithfulness, O Lord. Remember your people and have mercy on us, Lord.
At the time of divorce, people often turn to the church for a sense of belonging, according to Father James Young, a theologian who specializes in questions of divorced ministry.
They feel often very much at sea and very much lost and not too sure about how they fit in. So if the church provides that continuing sense of welcome and belonging, that you don't have to be 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark to fit into this parish, but all people are welcome no matter what their personal situation is. They're part of our parish family. If people have that continuing sense of belonging, which then I think positions them to receive the ordinary spiritual nurturance and support of the church community, that can be a very, very valuable asset to them during this difficult time.
One of the areas where the concern of the church can be most helpful is with the children of divorce.
In this country, we used to have a myth some years ago that if parents divorced, their kids would all turn out to be juvenile delinquents. We had a lot of movies back in the 30s and 40s that reinforced this myth. A friend of mine, a sociologist, says that about 10 years ago we replaced that myth with another myth, which was, it's better for the kids if you get a divorce. He likes to suggest that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Jack remembers how his children approached the breakdown of his marriage.
I guess I recall one night when I was alone in the den, the kids came into me, my 13-year-old daughter and 11-year-old son, and after they'd been well aware that the marriage had been having its serious problems, and said, "Dad, it's about time you got a divorce, don't you think?" And it just hit you like a rock.
I worked with a couple and 3 teenagers over a 6-month period.
Children adjust as well as their parents do,
deciding to separate.
and that is why separated and divorce groups like this one at Holy Trinity Parish in Georgetown are good for the whole family.
The key minister in divorce ministry is the divorcing person, because they share a common past. Their conversations with each other are much more important than any words that I would say to them.
And really what the support group does is establishes an alternate friendship network where there's other people I know care about me, call me on the phone, I meet with people who can really make a difference for me at this time.
In addition to the insight gained, these groups supply a needed social element, since many divorced people find themselves out of place with their married friends.
If you leave people out there exposed, friendless, and without any support, they are more likely to get into a hasty remarriage than if they belong to a support group where these new friends give them the time they need to recover from divorce. What actually goes on in support groups is the support groups become very wary of people marrying again quickly, advise each other against it, and really give people the time, help people buy the time they need to work through the aftermath of a broken marriage, which for most people is somewhere 3, 4, 5 years.
Recovery comes from support and forgiveness, and the church's ministry offers both.
When you believe, you know, if you believe in love and you believe in God, then you're not going to live in a situation that's hurting you. And you're going to say, okay, I made a mistake and I can go on and I'm going to grow.
Remember your love and your faithfulness, O Lord. Remember your people and have mercy on us, Lord.
You know, Monsignor, from watching the end of that last piece, our audience might be a little confused about the position of the Church on remarriage.
The Church's position on marriage still remains the same. It's fundamental and unified and permanent. But what has happened recently with so many divorces and separations, a deeper ministry of the Church takes place to minister to the divorced and the separated for a very painful time. Truly, though, it's pretty much like the parallel to the other story. The poverty that produces famine has to be addressed. And while you address it, you must also address the famine, too.
Next week, we'll learn how a foundation spreads sunshine to seriously ill children.
And we'll visit people who are in quest of a more perfect lifestyle.
2 of those people will perform an original song for us.
And Father Walt Nolan will discuss the church and nuclear war.
Thanks for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Good night, and God bless you.